It was 1817 when John and Thomas McClelland decided that they should take out a license to make whiskey on their farm in the small hamlet of Bladnoch near Wigtown in the far southwest of Scotland. The amazing thing is that distillery stayed in the ownership of the family until 1905. In 1911, the Belfast distiller Dunville and Company bought Bladnoch, and they ran it intermittently right up until 1937. It is confusing why Dunville shut down Bladnoch when it had been profitable and productive. In 1966, Inverhouse took over the operation and ran it for 10 years. By then, it had expanded to 4 stills. In 1983, the distillery was bought by Arthur Bell & Sons, which was absorbed by Guinness and eventually became Diageo. The unfortunate thing is that Guinness had no interest in keeping Bladnoch running, and they shut it down in 1993. 2 years later, the Irish Armstrong brothers purchased the distillery to turn it into a resort. They eventually got it up and running, but the Diageo agreement only allowed them to produce 100,000 litres per year. This was not enough production to be profitable, and the distillery went into administration in 2014. In 2015, David Pryor, an Australian businessman, purchased the distillery and started to modernize it. This included a new 5-ton mash tun, 6 Douglas fir washbacks, 2 12,500-litre wash stills, and 2 9,500-litre spirit stills. In 2019, Dr. Nick Savage left Macallans and became Bladnoch's Master Distiller and Blender. Bladnoch, along with Auchentoshan, Glenkinchie, and Annandale, are the only lowland distilleries from the 19th century that are still operating today. Well, welcome to Noel's World of Whiskey, and we're going to try to get through one a little faster today. This is Bladnoch, Lowland Whiskey. I haven't done too much on the lowlands. There's not a lot of distilleries left. At one time, it flourished in the lowlands back in the 19th century, to the mid-1800s, late 1800s. It is probably a whiskey more identified with the Irish whiskies than with the Scottish whiskies, because we think of lowland whiskies. Some of the whiskies were triple distilled. I think Auchentoshan still today is triple distilled. It is a lowland. But Bladnoch is the most southerly of these distilleries and close to Ireland. So it was basically a distillery that actually its start was 1817 by John and Thomas McClelland. And so they basically they founded the distillery, got it into production, legally licensed in 1820. It was built 1817. These were farmers, and a lot of those distilleries, that's how they started. So they grow their grain, and then they could produce that whiskey. They actually had pretty good production. They were doing, by 1826, they were doing 29,000. That's pretty good production back in those days. And they expanded. It was a successful start for them, and they were by 28 they were up 44,000, 45,000, and they had 20 workers. They were doing like 16,000 bushels of barley per year, so to produce the spirit, and that helps to be farmers, when you're doing that kind of stuff, and that was a better profit than just selling the grain for food or whatever. So they basically they produced pretty steady through the years there, and even Bernard, and the famous writer that toured all those distilleries, he does quite a description on Bladnoch there, and I'm not going to read it because it's pages. But anyways, unfortunately, as we got toward the end of that century, the family that did own it, they were struggling more. I mean, there was a lot of things going on. There was the temperance movement. The excise duties had gone up. There just in general was getting to be less demand, more surplus. We look at somewhere, I think, around just before 1911, I think, and this is in the Galloway area where there was a lot of distilleries. A lot of them did close, and between 1911 and 1937, the ownership changed to an Irish company, Dunville and Company. And, the story is that, United Distillers made a comment that they shouldn't be involved in the Scottish whiskey business. And, these were pretty aggressive companies. It was kind of a giant at that time. And these guys kind of, they got their tail between their leg, and they ended up, mothballing it. And eventually, Arthur Bell and Son bought it, and they were going to use it for, of course, their blend. And, of course, Arthur Bell was taken over by Guinness, which is now, of course, Diageo. The problem is that Diageo, when it took over Bell's, it had no interest in Bladnoch. It just inherited it. So it basically said, we don't really need this. And so again, it takes a bit of a beating. And a year after that, there was a couple of brothers from Northern Ireland, the Armstrong brothers, and they bought it. Now their focus was more in the tourism business and that, but eventually they just decided, they had made agreement with Diageo not to produce whiskey, but then they decided they wanted to. But it took about 5-6 years of persuading Diageo to let them at least produce. And so Diageo basically said, well, you can do 100,000 liters a year. Well, that was barely enough to break even. And they tried to make a go of it, and they did certainly focus a lot on the the visitor center and the tourism to help keep that operation going. They rented some of the facility out, some of it was for storage, etc. But they eventually just couldn't make a go of it, so eventually it was put into administration. And it was the Australian businessman David Pryor. I remember rightly, he had a huge yogurt business, and he ends up selling that business quite successfully. Made a pile of money on it, and he, as I understand, is the first Australian to get into Scotland and buy a distillery. So anyways, they managed to attract Nick Savage, Dr. Nick Savage, who was with Macallans. Prior to that, I think he worked for William Grant and Sons, but well-known master distiller, very skilled master distiller, and part of the reason he left was, a company like Macallans pretty set in the way they're producing their whiskey, and probably gave him, not a lot of his own input or his own creativity, which I think Bladnoch, of course, they opened up the door and gave him some freedom. So he is already creating some new whiskeys, and he is their one of the key guys for their future, looking at their new lines of whiskey, etc. So interesting distillery in that it's got a lot of history. I'm not going to get into details on it. You can read about it. But it has survived when most of those lowland distilleries are gone. Like I say, you got Auchentoshan, and I think Glengoyne is kind of right on the boundary, lowland, highland. But there just isn't a lot of those distilleries left. I'm trying to think of who else there is in the lowlands now. I always kind of think of Campbelltown as a lowland, but it's its own region, Campbelltown. So, but anyways, that's it for the quick history. Let's get into it. And they have a heavy bottle. That's all I'm going to say. When I pick up a Bladnoch, this is a heavy bottle. So we'll show you this is the newer style bottling. But I'm going to bring it up to you. You can see the box there. That is that's the Bladnoch insignia there. And let's show you the bottle. And there it is, Bladnoch, and it's non-chill filtered, natural color. I think it's 46 point, give me a second here, 46.7%. So there you are. And again, Bladnoch bottle, heavy bottle, nice bottle, kind of classy look. This is a 2018 special release, and it's celebrating the 200 years that Bladnoch has been operating. The Bladnoch 10 is matured in ex-bourbon casks, and it's finished in sherry oloroso butts. Anyways, let's do a pour. And like I say, I was going to try and get through this fast. We'll be doing the nose first. Interesting, when you lift this up, it's so heavy. It just sometimes you'll grab a bottle, you know, and you think there's a lot of weight to that, you know. Okay, nose. Very sweet and sour. Lots of nose to this, by the way. It's got a fairly strong nose. Definitely some sherry finishing. Sweet, obviously, from wood. 10 years old. And I'm going to now say we're getting a lot of the malt notes. I'm getting ginger. Kind of a doughy nose to it there. And I even am getting... oh my golly, a little slight bit of licorice in the background. What if that's a charred barrel? Anyways, beautiful nose on this here. Sweet and sours. There's a lot of layers to this. I'm going to try speed things up a bit. I could get a little more detail. I have noticed this a lot through the years and that, but I will say that it has a little complexity to it for a 10-year-old to the palate. Give it a good chew. Okay, right off the bat, there's a lot of body to this. Really good coating on the tongue and in the mouth. It almost seems that I'm drinking a 12 to 15-year-old here. It doesn't taste like a 10. It tastes like it's an older whiskey. Compliments to Bladnoch how they're doing that. Good casks. That's all I'm going to say. They've obviously very good casks. Or I got one heck of a bottle. This is the only Bladnoch I've ever had. I've always been impressed when I take a shot of this. I don't ever think and I haven't drank a lot of it, but what I've drank, I've always been impressed with it. Good coating on the mouth. It's got a little bit of the, I'm going to say Tupelo honey. It has a little bit of the pineapple maybe. And maybe a little bit of savory also mixed in there. So we've got an interesting mix. I'm really impressed with the way it coats your mouth here. I'm still tasting a wee bit of that licorice in the background, with the sweet notes in that. They're just so balanced with the tartness. Berries, that's probably sherry there. Probably blackberries and maybe currants. Little on, you know, kind of in between the ripe and the tart side. It's kind of like a mouthful of fruit and honey is what it tastes like, you know, with that little bit of licorice in the background there. I'm going to have to top this off. Very, very slight sulfur notes. But as far as the body, you're going to have pretty good legs on this. I just know you are. I haven't had much luck showing you the legs on these drinks here, so I'm going to try just hold it at an angle there. At least this way you can kind of get a good look at the color there. Hopefully that does give you a chance there to... Okay, there we are. Okay, I'm going to go after the finish here. I said this is going to be a quickie here today because I've got a lot in front of me to do, so the finish. Again, very good coating on the tongue. More of the honey notes, the honey, the berries, the licorice is kind of not there, but what I am getting is a lot of malt. I was mentioning that this does seem to be beyond the 10 years. It's one of the more impressive 10-year-olds that I've done. Very, very nice finish to it. I'm going to say this is going to have a medium long finish. Interesting thing about this whiskey is that when I look at 46, what did I say? It was 46.7, did I say? Yeah, 46.7%. So there's no bite. It doesn't, when you get a little bit of the intensity of the drink, but it's not like you're getting the whiskey or the spirit, the alcohol. So it does seem to be more of an aged whiskey than a 10-year-old. So I'm not sure what their secret is. They've got, like I say, the right cast, the right finishing, maybe the copper conversation in the stills, but anyways, overall I think for the finish and that, this is definitely going to be good nose, good palate, good finish. ABV is up there, non-shell filtered, no coloring added. Boy, everything's in place there. We're going to add some water. And that's something when I'm scoring these whiskeys, I really think that it's good to review everything, and the price, of course. That's important. We'll add a few drops. There we are. And we'll see what else we can get. Move that a little out of the way there. Oh, the sweetness. So I got a good hit of I'm going to say it's a sweet dough, and I might even go to my Macintosh toffee there, because I think that's exactly what I'm going to say is Macintosh toffee. And with the tart notes in the background, so Macintosh toffee, maybe some lemon lime rinds, a bit of apple pear mixed in, and not so much of the dark fruit, more of the ripe fresh pears, apples. Nice. Okay, the palate. So we've got pretty much the same in terms of the sweetness and that. I'm getting the honey and a mix of the almost like a granola mix, but more like a muesli mix there, where it's got a lot of fruit mixed in with it. There is no licorice in the background anymore. I've lost that, but I'm gaining some malty stuff. So and that could be again like the granola. It is very, very smooth drink. There's no sharpness, nothing bites. You know, the wood kind of is, it's there, but it's not really striking. But when I'm saying a 10-year-old that tastes like a 12 or 15-year-old, that's the best description of it. You know, I'm going to say this guy here is an 86. It's a 10-year-old 86. Beautiful whiskey, a beautiful 10-year-old whiskey. One of the better 10-year-olds that I've done. This distillery is doing it right. They seem to have everything in the right place. I can drink this just about any time of the day, and I have a good experience with this whiskey. So I'm highly recommending the Bladnoch 10. I really believe that they do an amazing job in 10 years, getting a whiskey to age 10 years. They're doing what Lachaga's doing with, over on, the Tobermory Distillery there. They're basically competing with a lot of the really strong players that we're seeing in the, like Iran whiskey and that. They're competing with them. They're at that level. So this is definitely one of the better 10-year-old whiskeys to purchase. So if you're kind of budgeting and that, but you're thinking, oh geez, well it's only a 10. No, this is like a 50 is what it is. So I'm highly recommending it. I'm going to ask you to drink wisely, drink intelligently. Do not drink and drive. Until the next time, so much.